Hey, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Baptist Health Ask an Expert session. This is the first part of our Coping with COVID series, Family Edition. So we'll talk a lot about families in these next 3 weeks. And as some of you may know, May is actually Mental Health Awareness Month. And we wanted to, for this series, give you some tools that will help foster your mental health. So I hope you find a couple pearls in here. But before we get started, I'd like for everyone to meet our speaker, Kal. So Kal, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure, thanks, Jean. My name's Kal Kseib. I'm with the Health and Wellbeing team at Baptist Health. I have a doctorate in psychology and really in health psychology, and really just an emphasis on the mind-body connection and how mental health issues and emotional well-being really factor into our physical well-being as well. So I'm trying to understand the emotional and psychological drivers behind some of the challenges that we experience in our lives.
Yeah, definitely. And for our viewers, Kal may look familiar to you. He's been with us before, and I'm just excited to have him back. And again, just reiterating all of those things, because I think the more that we hear about, what we're talking about today, mindfulness and these other various tools, it just helps us I think get grounded and kind of utilize those. So, like I said, topic for today is on mindfulness and why it matters. So to get us started, Kal, could you tell us what mindfulness is and how it's a helpful tool in dealing with stress?
Yeah, sure. I'm really glad actually that I've got the chance to just talk about mindfulness for a little bit, because so oftentimes we just jump into a mindfulness experience, which is great in and of itself. But I think there's been something missing about just sitting down and talking about, okay, hang on a second. We've heard a lot about mindfulness. It's everywhere. It's trending and it's popular, and there's lots of ways of doing it. But what really is it about? And so we'll start a little bit just by providing the background for it. So we can define mindfulness as being aware of what's happening in the present moment without judgment, with awareness and without judgment. And they're two key factors. But I'd like to say that there are two key pillars around mindfulness. One is around awareness itself, and that's awareness of the mind, awareness of our body and what's happening within our body, and awareness of the surrounding environment, so what's going on around us. And the second pillar to mindfulness, which is one that's often missed, is around wisdom, and that wisdom is about gaining a sense of perspective. It's about really emphasizing what matters most in any given moment. So it really tunes us into our values and a sense of intention about what's going on. How do I want to be in this moment? So, for example, how we tie those two things together is I might be aware, for example, that my mind is racing. And the second aspect, the second pillar around wisdom will be around, okay, my mind's racing. What am I going to do with this racing mind? And it may simply just be to say, okay, I'm just going to observe my mind, or I'm going to find ways to calm my mind, or to distract, or to just have a little bit of grace or patience for myself, whatever it may be. Or even you might say, I wonder where this thought's coming from, and try and understand what the backdrop is behind the thought. So it's a little bit more than just relaxation. In fact, the emphasis really with mindfulness is about observation. It's about settling the mind, settling the body through observation, and hopefully as a happy byproduct of that, there's relaxation as well. Of course, we hope that there is relaxation. That's great. But it's not necessarily where we start.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a great explanation. And for me, I always like hearing it time and time again, of mindfulness and really those things that we want to focus on, which is that awareness, which I feel like is so valuable. And just starting with that, I know for myself was a big deal. And then I love wisdom and that aspect of non-judgment, which we don't always think of. But just before we continue our conversation, Kal, I just want to say hey to our viewers that are commenting here. So, hey, Megan. And then is that a family member of yours, Kal? Or a
Oh
friend?
well, they're like family, really, to be quite honest. So, hi Fran, hi Megan, nice to see you guys. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, and I want to
Drop
encourage
any.
everyone. Oh, sorry. Go ahead,
I
Kal.
was about to say what you were going to say, which is
Oh,
just
okay. Yeah,
drop in
question.
drop in questions. Let's
Yes,
make this a friendly occasion and just informal as we can make it.
absolutely. Awesome. So,
Hi
I know.
Megan.
Hey, Megan. So I guess my next question for you, Kal, is if someone's struggling maybe to get into mindfulness, which I will raise my hand to be the first person to say that I did and struggle sometimes to be consistent with it. What do you suggest for getting started?
Yeah, well, another great question because oftentimes we make a snap decision. Oh, mindfulness, that sounds interesting. Let me try it. Don't like it, not for me, on to the next thing. Or I don't have time for it, or whatever it is that then leads us on to the next thing. And we make a quick judgment call. Little do we know that it's that judgment call that we make in our mind, which is exactly why we practice mindfulness. It's getting to know the voice that is guiding us in all these different directions. We don't recognize that I don't have time for this mindfulness thing is actually a thought. We just simply react to the thought. So it's just giving, we call it mindfulness practice, and it's the practice of mindfulness. So it's not something that we suddenly go into and we find ourselves that we kind of just, it's perfect first time, we relax and it's great. It's kind of, we have to feel around in the dark a little bit to really get to know it a little bit more, and to get to know what's happening in our mind, in our bodies, and to really understand what it's for. Because there's a really important question to ask, which is why on earth would I want to sit in my thoughts and feelings? In fact, there's some nice research been done recently which showed that they gave people the opportunity to be in a room by themselves with their thoughts, and there was an electric buzzer which they knew would shock them, and they felt the intensity of the shock and the pain before the experiment, before they were left alone in the room. It turns out that people would rather shock themselves in a room alone than be with themselves with their own thoughts. So people typically don't want to be with their own thoughts and feelings for too long. But the research is really pointing us in the direction that mindfulness is helpful to us. It is helpful to our emotional well-being and all these great other byproducts as well.
Yeah, no, that's great. And
Hi, Lisa and
wow,
Brian.
what?
I'm just saying hi to our friends that have just said hi in the chat.
Yeah, hey friends.
Brian and
um,
Lisa have joined us.
yeah, that's awesome. And yay, mindfulness. I know Lisa, I like I said, I enjoyed talking about this too. So one of my questions for you, Kal, is, I feel like there's a lot of confusion sometimes when it comes to mindfulness, that meditation and mindfulness are the same thing. And then also, I'm curious if you could give our viewers some examples of mindfulness and maybe in a couple of different ways.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So mindfulness, meditation can really come in the form of well, let's start with mindfulness. Mindfulness is a generic term for all of these different ways in which we can practice, which we'll talk about in a moment. And meditation, quite similarly, is more about the kind of it brings in all these other dimensions like yoga and like Tai Chi, or these different activities that we can bring to mindfulness as well. Mindfulness is more perhaps the umbrella term, and meditation is more the kind of physical aspect of it and how we bring that into play. So what kinds of mindfulness are there? Well, you could argue that you can do anything with mindful awareness, and that also brings into play the fact that we can really look at doing different things in a mindful way. We may have come across the idea of mindful eating, which has become quite popular as well. And sometimes people can use a raisin and just, chew on the raisin ever so slowly and just roll it around your mouth. And people are saying, what the heck are we doing? And but again, it's a nice mindfulness opportunity. It's also mindful walking and just noticing each step, noticing what's happening in your body. But really and truly, there are all these different techniques. But for me, mindfulness starts with the breath. And it starts with coming back to just noticing each breath in and each breath out. And actually, let's all just practice that now together. Just something ever so simple, like noticing the breath in and out. So if you're watching on Facebook here, just see if you can bring your awareness for a moment to each breath in and each breath out. And as you do that, what you'll notice with certainty is that your mind will start to dart in different directions, and it will start to ask questions and reflect, and images will come up and all these different things. And what's the aim then? Well, the aim is just simply to notice where your mind is. And if you choose to gently guide your mind back to the rhythm of each breath in and each breath out. Because as you notice that you're able to do that, what then it opens up the door to is being able to direct the breath to different parts of your body that typically are quite short on breath or short on energy. And we can create the sensation where the whole body feels like it's breathing. And then, so that's the wisdom part of it. The awareness is noticing what's going on, noticing that we can notice our minds and notice our breath. And the wisdom part is saying, okay, so I notice that I'm breathing in quite a shallow way, or I'm anxious and I'm just, my breath is here. The wisdom is saying, okay, I'm going to extend the breath all the way to my belly and to my pelvic floor and to my hands and feet and to my mind. And just that's the wisdom part. So typically when we give ourselves the opportunity, we know where to go, but we have to give ourselves the opportunity first.
Yeah. No, I like that. And even just those few simple breaths, I feel like relax me just a little bit more. So that's great. And it can be as simple as that, which I love. And I know we mentioned, obviously family edition, right? And talking about families and how, this past year just has been it's flipped our worlds upside down a little bit. And Kal, you and I, we both have families and can definitely relate to this. But I'm just curious, how is mindfulness, or let me see if I could phrase the question a little bit differently. Mindfulness, how can this tool be used to help with our relationships with our family members, and also with that factor of stress that comes sometimes with our families?
Yeah, and Jean, like you said, this is the family edition. So let's talk about family for a moment and how mindfulness matters in the context of family. So what we've spoken about so far is that the two pillars of mindfulness are about awareness and then about wisdom. So let's bring that into the family context. What are we aware of? Well, we're aware of maybe kids screaming or shouting or whatever it may be in a stressful situation, or that we have to do all these different things, or that we're distracted because we're juggling different things at the same time or trying to get as much done as we can. So that's the awareness piece. What's the wisdom piece? Well, in a mindful moment, it's the wisdom to tune into perspective and to say, okay, let me step back from the situation. Let me take a breath. I'm doing the best that I can in the midst of this. It's a focus on values and what's most essential and what we find most meaningful in that moment. And it's just simply that awareness of being, okay, so if I was my best self in this moment, so it's noticing I'm exhausted, I'm tired, I'm stressed. And if I was my best self in this moment, what would I be doing right now? So it almost allows us to take that kind of observer perspective. And for the viewers watching, they might just imagine themselves in their own home or in situations which perhaps we talk a lot about, by the way, a lot about being overstressed. This is also being about maybe underutilized as well in areas of our life, which maybe we're languishing a little bit. And actually that term languishing is really just coming into the vernacular. We'll hear it more and more. It's this idea that, as we come into, it's of course not post-COVID whatsoever right now, but as the situation with COVID evolves, what becomes evident is that we're starting to focus on our lives a little bit more. What are we doing with our lives? And for some people, it's not only about feeling stressed. For some people, it's saying, well, is there more to, life than the way I'm living right now? And we might call that languishing, that everything's fine, but it's just a bit like, well, and so it's the same thing with languishing. Awareness that we're languishing, and what matters most, wisdom. So, and it's just about finding those two together. But oftentimes there's so many ways of just pushing on, I'm fine, I'm okay. We numb, we avoid, we turn away from things. We don't actually do the simple thing of being mindful of our experience and starting to tap into the wisdom of what's most important. So that's really shines a light on a little bit more of a family dynamic. Of course, all of our family situations are different. We'll expand on this aspect of family next week and the following week. Actually, one of the cool things about this experience is that it's a series. It's part 1 of 3. So this is really an emphasis on mindfulness, which is really the gateway to understanding those family dynamics and starting with us as, us as the individual in the context of that family. But we'll talk more about strategies and tools and those dynamics in the next couple of weeks as well, which I'm quite excited about.
Yeah, no, and that's a lot of great words there. I know, I can certainly relate with what you just said on, how we're thinking a little bit differently these days, right? And so, that's just really interesting. And I'm curious, Kal, as that simplicity of mindfulness, right? And how we just took that breath and took a step away. And I think I wrote on my wall several times, I'm doing the best I can, because that was my mantra for a very long time. But I'm just curious if you could elaborate a little bit more for our viewers of just those more, maybe not so broad picture of family, but those simple moments of when mindfulness is helpful in, I'm speaking for myself, and I know you have a young son too, of screaming kid, and you're like, I don't know what to do. How can mindfulness in that situation be helpful for us?
Well, I think probably in those moments, the idea of mindfulness probably feels a million miles away. It's like, lovely idea. Right now, I'm freaking out and it's all too much. It's overwhelming and I'm angry and whatever, it's stressed. And so, and again, that's an extreme. Of course, we don't find ourselves hopefully you don't find ourselves in those situations all the time. But mindfulness can feel far away. So we talked about 2 pillars, and we'll come back to this idea. So just in terms of a practical aspect, so if we can just get a snapshot in a moment when we're exhausted, stressed, if we can just be aware for one moment, we can observe our own experience for one moment, and then tap into the wisdom. The wisdom's the important part. If we're dealing with young kids or multiple dynamics. It's the wisdom that is important. And with, if we're talking about kids and being in a family situation, which is stressful, a really powerful approach to take is to recognize that that situation isn't against you, that there's something in there for you, whether that be growth or something to learn or an opportunity to be more patient or more understanding, or that there's something that you haven't yet learned that is there for you, and also not only learned but enjoyed. There's magic in the misery. These are all situations that we find ourselves in that we recognize that in 10, 20, 30, 40 years time, we'll be looking back and wishing we had them again, or at a minimum laughing about them. So again, just a snapshot of being mindful in that moment, if that's possible, taking that observer perspective just for a mindful, and then just for a moment, and then the wisdom, which is about perspective. Again, in the midst of this, how do I want to be? What's important here? What's there to learn? What's there to savor, to enjoy? An opportunity for connection. So starting to see our experiences not as being against us or something that we shouldn't have to do, but is actually positioned ideally for us just in that moment. Again, that's a reframe that can be helpful in the midst of challenging times with family. I hope that's helpful in some way.
Yeah. I think, for me too, and just hearing that, if there's something for, we always think about, I feel like others, or at least for myself, I think about the other person, usually. And I like that you talked about how there's something in it for you to learn and to gain from. So I really like that aspect of it too. And just coming back to that wisdom and awareness, just those two things to keep in mind for every time.
Yeah, and a couple of things. Can I add a couple of things to that?
Yeah, of course.
Firstly, any questions? Let's make this active. Just drop them in the message box, and if you're finding something helpful or you want to share your experience of something, just please do share. Just something to add to that. We talked about the body before and how important the body is in that experience. So when we're under stress, we know that cortisol is pumping around our body. We know that we're probably breathing at a shallow rate. What we call our sympathetic nervous system is on high alert. It becomes really important to soothe, to calm, to downregulate these difficult emotions for ourselves first. We often hear that term of putting on the oxygen mask for ourselves first before we can take care of others. And if we can notice that our body is agitated or in stress, and we can find ways to soothe. So again, starting with something is very, very straightforward, like the breath. So again, taking a breath in, but also a fully exhaling. Then that gives us the possibility of recalibrating and just finding ourselves grounding in that moment. What then becomes the opportunity, and this is quite a cool opportunity, is to try and do the same for the person that we're interacting with. So if or the child that we're interacting with, or if it's a relationship tension with a husband or a spouse or a loved one, can we do the same, that what we've just done for ourselves for the other person? So for example, if we notice they're under stress, it's taking a breath for ourselves just to reground and to center and to release and to downregulate any stress that we're experiencing, to notice where it is in our bodies and to tame, naming it, to tame it, to label, and then downregulate through the breath. Then can we do the same for the other? So one for me and one for the other person. Now, part of you might be thinking, oh gosh, but they're annoying me, or I'm so angry with them.
Yeah.
But that's really a nice way of just reconnecting is just to say clearly that that person or that child is under stress too. They're struggling too.
Mm-hmm.
Can I just extend a breath to that other person, one for me, one for you? And again, that just adds to that level of connection, or the possibility of restoring connection at least.
Yeah, and just a thought, and I know we have a mention from one of our viewers, but this can be, think of everyone as not just kids, but adults too, right? We can reconnect with maybe an adult that we live with, a family member, maybe we're having a hard time with, right, Cal, and just do the same thing. It doesn't have to be a child, but just an example of something that I use for my son is, when he's upset, and usually it's either I'm upset or he's upset or we both make each other upset. We both do deep breathing together. And so, I always say, okay, we're both upset. We're both I ask him how he's feeling and I express how I'm feeling. And then we take a deep breath together. And it's actually cool to see because he was watching a show the other day and there was a character that was really upset. And he's like, it's okay, character, like just take a deep breath. And that kind of made me smile because I'm like, wow, like he's learning from that situation too. So I love the idea of it's not just for you, but also for the same person. So that's really awesome.
Yeah, I love that. And I think there's a huge opportunity. Now uh, we know that the blueprint for how people deal with stress in their lives starts in pregnancy, for that child.
Yeah.
And the first 3 years of life, first two, three up to 4 years of life are really where the map or the blueprint for how we deal stress for the rest of our lives is created. Now that's pretty terrifying as an idea, but it's also a huge opportunity to recognize if we can start with these practical aspects of working with the breath, working with difficult emotions in this way, that doesn't simply focus on, discipline or stifling or time out, which, of course, is what a lot of people turn to instinctively for these things. But again, that can lead to confusion or misunderstanding on what's not a lack of understanding of what's actually happening in the body in that moment. So yeah, I love that, Gene, that with Cole, your young one, you're able just to breathe together. And kids pick up on this stuff. They're, very, very young kids can really learn how to take a breath and breathe with you as well. And they might not even understand the idea, but it in some way impacts. Jean, I'm seeing some questions here. Should we
Yeah.
take a couple of those on?
Yeah, absolutely. And I see Kara tuned in with us. So Kara, thanks for being here. It's great
Hi,
to
Cara.
hear from you. So she had mentioned, as I find myself starting to get anxious or my mind spins, I remind myself that many of my problems are really blessings that others would love to have. So she's talking about her perspective, which I love that. But her question to you, Cal, is what are some good, gentle leading questions to help others notice and downregulate without offending them? I think that's a really good question.
I think that's an amazing question. And I don't know that I'll truly do justice to it because I find myself in those situations too, where it's just, your intention is good, but oftentimes it can be, it can lead to more defensiveness, more avoidance. So I think, I love the way, Cara, that you asked the question, some good, gentle leading questions. Simply your approach in that respect becomes all important. It's the content of what you're saying becomes less important than your approach, which is it an approach of compassion, of care, of curiosity, which is, hey, what's happening with you right now? You seem stressed, and really taking a curious approach rather than an approach of, I'm frustrated with you, stop being angry. If you can bring in curiosity and then compassion and care, and then just say, what's going on with this person right now? Almost, and I think another aspect there is, there's a psychologist, Dr. Mark Goldman, who his approach is around being a pal. And the PAL stands for purposeful. Purposeful is the P. A is agendaless, and L is listening. So be a pal to the other person. Purposeful, so you're coming in with curiosity and care and compassion. Agendaless, that is to say, trying to listen without an agenda, without memory, or without any sort of something from before, which is, I know this about this. But if you were meeting them for the first time and you were really caring about them, how would you be? And then that kind of listening aspect as well, which is just about opening up to what they have to say before we kind of rush in with what we think we should say or do to solve the problem. So be a pal, I would say, Cara.
I like that. I'm going to remember that, Kal. I like that, pal. So purposeful, agendaless, and listening. Okay, I got it right.
Agendaless listening.
Cool. Yeah, and that's another great just takeaway, with that awareness. And it kind of all, is together, but awareness and wisdom, and be a pal, right? So Kal, I don't see any more questions, but of course, for our viewers, if you have any more, feel free to tune in. But Kal, as our conversation kind of comes to a close, what would you like to leave our viewers with as far as like a main takeaway regarding mindfulness?
Yeah, I think it's really about, with the specific emphasis on mindfulness this week, and we'll evolve next week to talking maybe about other aspects. Really getting that understanding that mindfulness is about observation, and it is about wisdom and tapping into our own inherent wisdom that we all have. And it's there if we can be patient and courageous enough just to be with what is in our minds and our bodies and our environment, and to just open up to what's the next one step to take here that's in line with what's most essential, what's most important to me in my life. And typically what we'll find there is gentleness. What we'll find there is kindness. And what we'll find there is all those things that we associate with a life well lived. It's the kind of person we want to be, but we have to tap into that. Number one, that awareness, and number two, the wisdom. And that's what mindfulness really is about. And hopefully, as a happy byproduct of that, as we say, that we get the relaxing aspect of it as well. But that's really the core takeaway for today, I would say. And just also thank you to everyone who joined us today. If you do have any questions, please just drop them in the Facebook Live there. We also have the opportunity to follow up with you as well. So even if you're thinking, it's too late to ask a question, don't be shy, just drop it in there and we'll come back to you on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And like Kal said, you can drop it in the comments or even message the Baptist Health page, and we're happy to get back to you. But Kal, I just want to thank you so much for your time today and sharing your wisdom about mindfulness. I think, like I said, every time we talk and just that I hear about the topic, I just learn something new. So I really appreciate that. And then I also want to thank all of our viewers for tuning in. So like Kal said, this is a 3-part series. So we will be live with you all again next Wednesday at 1 p.m. So be sure to mark your calendars, and also you can also say you're attending the event there as well. That way you get your reminders. But feel free also to, we have a newsletter. So the link is in the comments just above us. So be sure to sign up for that newsletter, and that way you can get up to date on all of our programming and other services that we have for the community, which a lot of them are for free, which is wonderful. So again, thank you everyone so much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank you, Jean. Great to be with you as always. Look forward to round 2 next Wednesday. And I'd love to see everyone who was here today. Love to see you all again next Wednesday. Hope you all can make it and spread the word also.
Yes. And then just remember, be a pal.
Be a pal.
you, pal. All right, bye, everyone.